Ryan here with E39 Source. Welcome back. It's been a long time since I've done an update on this car for some reason. The last one I could find on YouTube was in February. It is now the last day of August 2018. It's beautiful summer. Today's a gorgeous day. It's been kind of a turbulent summer here. We've never had so many thunderstorms, high heat, high humidity as this year. But I've made the best of it. It's Friday, I just got the lawn mowed, I cleaned up the car, going into Labor Day weekend, why not do a little update here? So, the last one I found was this one on YouTube. It said Winter 2017. It was published February 8th, 2017, and I've done kind of a lot of stuff since then. So I've put it together in a notes document here on my phone, and I'm just going to go through it, and we'll talk about all the different, some of them stupid, some of them big, some of them cheap, some of them not so cheap. All the things I've done here since that February. So I'm going to back the car out because you can't see much in here. We'll put it in the driveway and I'll show you what I've done. So the biggest and most fun thing that I've done, you'll actually hear immediately, but I'm not going to talk about it till later because it's one of the more recent modifications that I've made to this car that, by the way, I never thought in a million years that I would ever actually do. Mileage-wise, we're at 198,665, so around 4,000 miles since winter of 2017, which I know is pitiful, but we are within 30 days of moving to California now. So that's gonna go up a lot when I can start driving it out there. So I'll kind of hold the camera out the window here. It's a little louder. It's a little louder. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Everything still works. I don't have a seatbelt on, so we'll see that light for a moment. There's a new daily driver in the garage for my mom. The 07 Accord is gone. It's been replaced with a 2019 Jetta SE, which is pretty nice actually. Those Jettas, that's the Mark 7. Those have gotten very nice. 545i shifter's been fantastic, nice and tight. Love that thing. And I'm gonna do what you're not supposed to do and turn it off cold, because I will be driving it later today. Still have the black view in there, the V1's still here. All of that. Really, it doesn't really look much different anywhere, inside or outside. But I was happy with the way it looked before. There we go, parked out in the shade, it's a beautiful day. So we'll do a little walk around here. As I mentioned, not too much looks different, but we're going to be all over the place talking about what I've done. I'm just going to kind of go in chronological order, which isn't the most logical order. We're going to be talking about suspension and then interior and exterior and fun mods, worthless mods, and then repairs in no particular order outside of the date in which they were completed, or the order in which they were completed. Otherwise, still looks the same. Still have the black diffuser, the Eisenman Race 4x76mm mufflers are still there. We'll talk about what's been added to the exhaust system and removed from the exhaust system shortly. I just got it cleaned up today with, of course, my favorite Zano Z6. I did the tires last weekend. I didn't do them again today. I did clean the wheels earlier today, but still pretty much looks the same on the outside. So we'll start with the first thing I did after that last update. And I've made videos on a lot of this stuff, so there may be some redundancy, but for the sake of putting it all together, it's going to be here in this video. And that first thing was the airbag. Did the Takata recall. Now, I still have the 330, the 02 330xi. That's about to be sold, actually, since I'm not bringing it to California. But that car's an 02. It came with the sport wheel, came with the round airbag. I was able to do the recall on that. And then they switched airbags. It's a little shady. But this one's got the new, as of like March 2017, fresh new airbag in it. And I did the steering wheel, you may remember, a couple years back. So super fresh looking wheel and airbag. The wheel's really worn in well. It's gotten a little blacker. It's not as textured as it was. I really happy with the way it's worn in. We're gonna go from the interior all the way to the back. Tires. Now, I put new rears on the car sometime back in early mid-2017. They're still Michelin Pilot Super Sport in the stock size 275/35 ZR18. The 4S, the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, were not yet out. These are some of the last Pilot Super Sports, the PSS, that were available, I think. There may have been several sets that sold after these, but I remember it was harder than usual to find them. So they've got, I don't know, 3,000–4,000 miles on them. They've got plenty of tread left. Those suckers are going to stay on there for a while. Then you probably remember the video where I spent some time back here, and you'll see that there is some of the typical gas cap rust in this car. But I had to rebuild the lock actuator here. So when you lock the car, there's a little peg in there that shoots out. There's a motor that lives back here in the trunk. Peg goes inside this hole and locks the door. And mine had failed, so I replaced the Bowden cable and the motor, and maybe there was a bracket. I don't remember, it's been a while, but that works again. Then it got annoying. We had to work with the steering system. So I had this issue. I made a video about it called clunking. I think it was like Ryan's M5 clunking diagnosis or something like that. It was pretty minimal, but I still felt it, and you know how picky I am with details and such, so I had to deal with it. I think I had the wheel all the way to the left, and then once I started to turn back to the right, changing direction, I would feel a small thud, a very minor vibration in the steering. Once you got it out on the road, it was completely fine. But in parking lots and changing directions, backing out of the garage, full lock left to then straighten, I would have that click. So we diagnosed the whole front suspension, couldn't find anything wrong in the steering. I've replaced every single suspension component on this car, short of the front springs, which haven't sagged and have shown no need to be replaced, so I'm not going to waste money on that. And the rear integral links, same deal. They were fine, they don't need to be replaced. Every single other component has been done. At least once, some of them 2 and 3 times. So it wasn't the tie rods, it wasn't the center track rod, it wasn't the idler arm, it wasn't the pitman arm, it wasn't the pitman arm bushing, although I replaced the pitman arm bushing because I thought that might be what it is. We moved into replacing the steering gearbox. That was fun. Got one from Adam, thank God for him. And it was a lower mileage. I think it was an 01 part that had like 130,000 miles on it versus the 190 something. So I swapped that in there, and then we also found that this wheel carrier up here was missing a big thick washer that goes in between the outer tie rod and the carrier. And the carrier had been cracked from somebody before my ownership, beating the living hell out of it, trying to get the tie rods to drop out, because this has been an Ohio car for 18 years and it went through 14 winters and there was corrosion and all that. So I replaced the carrier, replaced that missing big thick washer that was in there, and the steering gearbox and the servo, and no more click. During that time, we also replaced the idler arm bushing and the rear ball joints. They found some slop in one of the rear ball joints when it was in the shop, so I just had them do both. I don't do that work after trying it on Kennan's car. It was a miserable experience, so I'm happy to pay somebody to do that. I also did the oil level sensor. I kept getting a... It wasn't all the time, it was fairly sporadic, but it would come up, just like all good M5s do, and say, check engine oil level. Well, I checked the level, and it was more than halfway up the dipstick. It was fine. So I decided to replace the oil level sensor. I think I did a video on it with an oil change. It was very simple. The one that was in there, you may remember, this car has an 02 motor. It's a 2000 M5, but it's got May 02 motor that was rebuilt at 122,000 and put in this car at 192,000. So the engine's got 4,600 miles on it in this car right now. And the oil sensor, the level sensor that was in there was original to that 02 motor. So I pulled that one out, put in a Hella, did an oil change, solved that problem. Then we did some more so basic maintenance. I replaced the wiper blades for only the second time in my ownership of this car. I've had it 8 years now, isn't that hard to believe? Bought it July 24th or 26th, 2010, and that date just passed here in 2018. So I don't drive this car in the rain anymore, but I wanted wipers that worked, so I put new wiper blades on it. Then back here, I did a door sill because of something. I don't remember. A clip broke, there was a big scuff in it, something like that. That's a new door sill that matches, obviously, the rest of them. And I think I did this trim piece in here because there's a little hole there that a bolt goes through, and it had been broken off by somebody carelessly removing it in the past. It was probably me. So I replaced all that stuff. I think when they were doing the ball joints, they also found that the rear lower control arms had some bushing wear, and those are the bushings that aren't really serviceable. You can't buy new OEM ones, and I didn't want to replace the whole arm. So I went with the PowerFlex Black bushings back there, and we did 4 of them. It's been so long now I don't remember if there were, obviously 2 in each one. I think there's an upper and a lower in each of the rear control arms. So those have been replaced with PowerFlex Black bushings. Then came an annoying issue of random trifecta, surprise drift mode, as some people call it. The brake light, the ABS light, and the DSC light would all illuminate orange. Sometimes they'd be on for a matter of seconds, sometimes it would be 10 miles. Turning off the car and turning it back on would sometimes make it go away. I pulled the codes from the ABS module, and it was a wheel speed sensor issue on, I believe, the front left corner. So my first step in fixing that issue was replacing that ABS sensor. I did a video on it on the channel. Put the new ABS sensor in, all was well for a couple days, and then the same issues came back. So I moved on to rebuilding the ABS module, and I used Module Masters for that. They're out in Idaho, I believe. A couple $100. I did it right before I took a trip out to the West Coast for a while, so I didn't care about not having the car, although you can still drive it, but I wouldn't want to. So I got back from that trip. The module had been returned, and I reinstalled it. Very simple. May have a video on that too. So now the only way you can tell is the fact that it's got a sticker on there that says Module Masters, and it says warranty void if seal is broken. And I think it was a 2 or 3 year warranty on that, maybe just a year. But I'm going to leave the sticker on there. Why not? Got a fresh ABS module, and that was the culprit. Rebuilding the module fixed the errors that I had turning on the trifecta. So I've had a Blackstone oil analysis now done twice since this engine was rebuilt. They both come back very good, which I'm happy about. It's only been a couple thousand miles, I know, but there's no surprise metals in there or any signs of premature wear. Then sometime last year I did the front wishbones. When I was in there doing the ABS module, I remember I realized that one of the boots was torn on one of the front wishbones. That's the smaller of the two front aluminum control arms. So I replaced both of those with OE Lemporter parts and then got an alignment. And when I was in there, I did the front sway links too. They were fine, but I had never done them, and that was one of the only common wearing parts on this car that I had not yet replaced. So I went ahead and put fresh front links in there. Now, I think it was last fall, Kenan and I did a fun little retrofit European spec style DIY of adding the front or the rear fog lamps. So all these came with front fog lights, but you see the extra position here. You turn your fronts on like normal, and then to get the rears, you give it an extra little kick of that switch and it springs back, and then the rear fog lights would be on. So I'll go ahead and kick the key here, and you've got to turn your halos on and turn the rears on, and then you see the little yellow icon there indicating that the rear fog lights have been turned on. We have a full DIY on how to retrofit that to these cars. It's quite simple, it doesn't cost that much money, and it lights up the inner, what look like brake lights to an untrained eye, but it lights the inners up there to act as your rear fog lamps. So that was fun. And back outside to the front, I had another annoying thing I had to take care of last summer regarding the front springs. So it all started when I was in there replacing the ABS module. Then I found those wishbones, replaced the wishbones. When I did that, I noticed that my springs appeared to be improperly aligned on the strut. So it's going to be kind of impossible to see that in there. But there's kind of a step on that strut plate that they're supposed to sit into, so I thought. Turns out one side does, the other side didn't. Had my local shop take a look at it, the guys who rebuilt the motor, and determined that both springs were actually improperly installed on these struts when I had them replaced way back in 2011. So back apart yet again, the front suspension came, and they straightened out those spring and strut installations. I also went ahead and replaced the MAFs again. Did a video on that. They put new Bosch ones in, and I was dealing with some sort of drivability issue where it would kind of kick into a limp mode. I unplugged the MAFs. It was fine without them plugged in. Once I plugged them in, I had the issue, so I just put new Bosch mass airflow meters in. Then we move into something that was super annoying towards the end of last summer. I think it was maybe September or October. I pulled the car in the garage, I went in the house, I came out 15 minutes later and I smelled fuel, and I thought, that's not good. So I get down and I look under the car, and there's a little puddle right here about a foot in front of the inside edge of this wheel. It was leaking fuel from one of the lines that goes from the fuel tank up to the front. So that turned into a huge project. I did the fuel pump, because that hadn't been done since like 2006, it had been a long time. Fuel pump, we did the fuel transfer pump, the little Venturi hose that keeps the two sides of the tank even. All of the vent lines, all of the little feed lines. The one line that runs all the way up is a vent, the other two are feeds. I had already done the primary feeds, but I did that vent that was all rusty. I did a line up there that goes past the fuel filter and pressure regulator and up into the engine. Every line in the back has been replaced. All the hardware, the mounts, the brackets, the nuts, the bolts, the screws, all of that's good. So pretty much everything but the charcoal canister and the fuel tank itself has now been taken care of. Well, it was in there having that work done, we found that the drive shaft U-joint had some play. Of course, one thing leads to another thing. You fix one thing and find 3 more problems on these cars when they get these kind of miles. But eventually the problems have to stop, right? That's why I keep going with it. So I sourced another drive shaft. The new ones are super expensive. I got a gently used one from Adam off a donor car with about half the miles that this one had. It was in perfect shape. My old one had little rust speckles in it. So the new drive shaft should last quite a while now, and car's even smoother to drive. Now we come back here. So this car has PDC. I retrofitted the front parking sensors. Being a 2000, it only came with the rear. But these inner sensors here, ever since I had it, that one, the left inner, had some rust on it. And I tried putting some Silverstone metallic touch-up paint on it. That kind of worked, but then that was starting to come off. So again, from Adam, I found a great set of used ones. These are the pre-facelift style still in Silverstone in beautiful condition. So sometime, I think over this past winter, I removed the rear bumper about 1/3 of the way, just slid it out and popped in those fresh PDC sensors. Also this spring, I've also removed the outer ones. One of them was starting to kind of turn purple. You'll notice those ultrasonic sensors, they aren't painted black, but they are black plastic of some sort. They kind of turn purple as they age. So I removed them both and very carefully repainted them black. And now all of that looks great again. Another Euro small mod. We'll open the trunk and then we'll open the toolkit and we'll see that finally it is 100% full with every single thing that was offered in here. And what I added was the warning triangle. Now there's 2 versions of the warning triangle. I'm actually planning on doing a video going through here talking about what all of these different things are, what the part numbers are, and where you can get them should you be missing some of the tools. I've seen a lot of these cars. You open them up and there's nothing in here. I don't know how all the tools get lost over not even 2 decades yet. Anyways, the warning triangle looks like this. It's pretty flimsy, but it fits in here really well and is cool just to be able to fill out the trunk lid itself, or the toolkit itself. And I will set it up here and demonstrate what this thing looks like. So you fold the legs out, you fold the triangle up, connect it at the top, and there you have a warning triangle that if you were broken down on the side of the road or whatever it is, set that 30 feet away from your car, and that's what they got in Europe, and for some reason not here. So it was cool to be able to add it. It came in a case, a blue plastic case that it slides out of, but the case doesn't fit on the pre-facelift toolkits back here because it's got this extrusion, something slightly different. So you take the case off and then it fits in there like a glove, and you can let the Velcro hold it down. 2 minor things on the inside. I'm still loving the aluminum sport pedals down there. I mentioned the shifter already. The parking brake's really nice and tight now. After Bill did some work on the back, he tightened that up, so like 4 clicks nearly lock the wheels. It's amazing. The Euro dash has been fantastic. I've talked about that before, but note how it beautifully blends into the door panel there. I mentioned the storage cubby over there by your left knee. Nice slim lower dashboard, allows you to sit up a little bit closer so you get more room in the front and more room in the back. And then it's kind of impossible to film due to the lighting, but I actually had part of this Alcantara headliner start to sag. The only part that started to sag was right up here, and you can't tell now because I peeled it down and then I used some Loctite spray adhesive in there. I pulled down a pretty big area, sprayed the adhesive in, pushed it up there, and then held it there with some towels on top of boxes on the back seat. And it feels a little bit harder than the rest of it does, but I always yell at people if they touch this anyways, but you cannot tell visually that that has been repaired at all. And I'm not about to go and replace this headliner for fun. So consider that a good repair. Now we're all the way to the spring of 2018. I've really done very little on this car this year aside from drive it. The big thing that I talked about in the beginning of the video, and then I did do a brake fluid flush. It had been exactly 2 years since the engine was rebuilt, and I flushed the fluid in there. So I decided to stick with BMW's recommended interval of 2 years, go ahead and flush that fluid again. So I did that, and right after the brake fluid was flushed, I had the X-pipe installed. So it isn't a Super Sprint X-pipe. This is the one that I had been contemplating for a long time. Finally pulled the trigger on it. It's the Rogue Engineering resonated X-pipe, known as the Diablo. And it's going to be difficult to see in this low light, but it is in there. and it sounds freaking awesome. It is perfect, exactly what I wanted this car to be like. So it's completely stock headers, stock cats, into the Rogue Diablo resonated X-Pipe. The X-Pipe itself has two 10-inch resonators on it. When I got the X-Pipe, I filmed a couple clips, and I'm going to go ahead and throw those in here. And as I said, those two 10-inch resonators are exactly what make, in my opinion, the sound of it perfect. So we're stock back to the X-Pipe, do the X-Pipe, then we come back to the Eisenman, as I said, 4x76mm mufflers. It is the race version. And the X-Pipe just totally opened up the sound of these Eisenmans, and it really sounds amazing. I love how the throttle becomes a volume knob. So the cold start's a little loud. You could delete that. It's not bad enough. You're never going to hear the neighbors complain or anything like that. I don't leave early in the morning, so it's never been an issue. Then it gets pretty quiet at idle, but you still have a nice low rumble outside. And if you drive the car very moderately, it's pretty tame inside the cabin, but once you get into that throttle, especially above 3,000 RPM, all the way up to 7,000 RPM, it's a very loud and aggressive kind of tone. Kenan said it best, I think it sounds angry, but it's super refined. You get a bunch of snap crackle pops on when it's totally cold. Like if I were to start it now and drive up the street and then take my foot off the gas and let it kind of slow down due to its own revs without using the brakes, it sounds a little sloppy. It sounds kind of cool, sounds like machine gun fire, but once I'm more than a mile away from the house, the oil's warm, the exhaust warms up, then you don't get any of that. It's really refined. I will do a separate video on that if you guys want to hear it, and I'm guessing there are people who would like to. So we'll have to do a cold sound and a loud sound, low throttle and high throttle. Now when I put it in, the center exhaust bushings, where that center exhaust brace holds up the factory resonator and the X-Pipe, those bushings were totally shot. I thought I had extra ones in my basement. I did not in my parts inventory, so we had to order them. So there was a weekend this past summer, it was Memorial Day weekend actually, where I was driving around with the X-Pipe not properly attached in the center. And for some reason, that was super loud and drony and buzzy and honestly annoying. So I was very happy then when those bushings went in and completely alleviated all of that. It doesn't drone unless you put it in like 6th gear at 40 and floor it. Obviously it's going to drone at 1200 RPM. Anywhere above 2200 it does not drone. It's very refined but super sporty and aggressive. It's in my opinion the absolute perfect tone for this car. So I couldn't be happier with the exhaust setup now, and it's not going to change again. Now that we're up to current, let's talk about the future. So as I mentioned, 29 days before I'm shipping this car across the country, all the way to San Diego, California, where I've dreamed of moving and living now for the better part of a decade. So I'm pretty excited about that. Getting it prepared for California is going to require a couple things. So right now this car runs a Shark 93 octane spec tune. Well, the big negative about California, car-wise, is that it doesn't offer 93 octane gas, only 91. So I'm going to have to detune it, sacrifice 3 horsepower or something worthless, back down to the 91 tune. So I've got to figure that out still. I'm also going to upgrade the tint. This car is tinted. It was done under the previous owner in 2007. It's Lumar ATC, ATX, something like that film. It's about a 50% tint. The side windows are done, the back window's done, the sunroof wasn't touched, and the windshield wasn't touched. So I'm actually going to have this stuff taken off here in the next week or two if I choose to do it in Ohio. Otherwise it'll be about 5 or 6 weeks if I do it in San Diego, and I'm going to go with, I think, 3M crystalline film in maybe just one shade darker than this. Out here in the shadows it looks darker than it is. I hate super dark tint, like 30% and darker. Just in my personal opinion, it's too dark, especially on a lighter car. I want to be able to look inside a car and see what interior it has and be able to tell if it has a steering wheel or not. And when you've got that spray paint tint, you just can't see anything. Plus it's illegal, and it just looks like a remote control car at that point to me. So we're gonna do some tint here pretty soon. I'll do a video on that. And then I also want to do some film. These headlights only have a couple thousand miles on them. The bumper only has a few thousand miles on it. And the front end's really in very good condition. The hood itself definitely has chips in it. That's the biggest one there that's been filled with touch-up paint. There's another couple handfuls here around the roundel, and then this part always gets real bad. It's clean right now, but they're in there, I promise. So I don't think I'm going to do the hood just because it is pretty chipped up, but I'll do the headlights, I'll do the front bumper, maybe the fogs, we'll keep that nice. The mirrors, I've replaced the mirrors, they've been painted and they're perfect, so I'd like to film the mirrors, and maybe these handles here. I start to see some clear fade on those California cars, so it'd be cool to get some film over the door pull handles to keep them nice. After that, I'm just going to drive it, enjoy it, listen to it. It is an absolute blast to drive, especially with this exhaust. And I love this car. It's in possibly the best shape it's ever been in right now, and I look forward to many years of enjoyment with it, especially having it in California, being able to drive it 12 months a year, go to the ocean, go to the desert, take it to LA and up to the Bay. That kind of stuff's going to be amazing, so I can't wait. It'll be at Bimmerfest next year. I know every year I get comments and questions and emails, people asking me if I'm going to go that year, and I haven't yet. So next year, 2019, I think it's in May, will be my first appearance, and I can't wait. Then we're going to pull it back in, wrap this one up. Before I do, we'll just listen to what is pretty much a cold idle. It's at 900 revs in there. So the cold idle's pretty loud. That you probably would hear up in the bedroom if I were to start this thing at 7 a.m. Okay, I gave it a couple minutes here. The secondary air pump's been off for several minutes. The cold, or the warm idle, the 500 idle, it's like super quiet, nice and refined. You still get a nice burble. You can always tell that this car has an exhaust system on it. It never sounds stock. I've gotten used to it, but then when I get in, like Luke was here in his Avis Blue, and then I drove Kennan's Titanium the other day, and they're so quiet inside. Not that that's a bad thing. It's super refined. It fits these cars really well. And even they're a pretty aggressive stock system, in my opinion, compared to normal cars. Volkswagens, your 3 Series, your Hondas, all of that. The stock M5 systems are quite a bit boomier, but this one is just another level of, you can always tell it has something cool on it. And there's a lot of my neighbors out, and we got old people and we got kids, so I'm not going to do anything too disrespectful here, but I'll tap the throttle here. It's a great sound. We're gonna do another video, don't worry. I'll get some cameras back here. We'll do some outside pulls and whatnot. I hate exhaust videos on YouTube because microphones never pick up an accurate sound. And when I was looking into this, I've watched like every M5 exhaust video you can find on YouTube, and they just don't translate at all. They're fun to listen to, but they're not very realistic. So that'll do. That is the summer 2018 update. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of this car here in Ohio before it gets shipped to California. I'll definitely do content on taking delivery of it there and starting to drive it out on the West Coast. It's going to be amazing. I look forward to all of that. Thank you guys for watching. Leave any comments down below. Feel free to shoot me an email, ryan@e39source.com, should you have any questions or whatever. And I'll talk to you in the next E39 Source video. Take care.